Look, if you're still hunting for magic prompt templates in 2026, then you're probably focusing on the wrong thing. The truth is, the way we were taught to prompt a couple of years ago just isn't efficient anymore. The tech has moved on. The big players like OpenAI and Google didn't just make AI smarter, they gave it a massive context window. So they essentially solved the prompting problem with memory. So if you're still writing 500 words mega prompts, then you're probably just wasting your time. But there's a catch. There are two different environments for prompting. One has a memory and the other one is a total blank slate. If you treat them the same way, then you're gonna work twice as hard for half the result. Simply because the systems are built differently. If you're new here, I'm Dan. I spent a decade as a developer. I was earning 6 figures and working on major projects. And the big thing that AI changed for me is realizing that prompting is not about clever wording. It's about how systems handle context. So today we're moving from being prompt collectors to context architects. I'm going to give you my personal T.P.O.C framework for building actual business solutions. And I'll show you the final secret, the meta prompt I use to make ChatGPT write my most complex prompts for me, especially for things like image generation, where I'm not an expert. If this way of thinking makes sense to you, then you'll probably want to stick around. So let's dive right in. AI didn't get better just because the models got smarter. It got better because it can see more. Look, OpenAI and Google basically declared war on prompt engineering. They expanded their context windows to about 1-2 million tokens. And that changed everything. Back in the day, we'd have to be wordsmiths. We had to use specific adjectives to trick the AI into being smart, because it had the memory of a goldfish. But now, the AI can read your entire company's playbook, your last year of marketing data, and your brand voice in about 3 seconds. So the prompting problem is being solved by data. So here's the shift. In 2026, stop hunting for magic prompt templates. The value isn't in how you talk to the AI, it's in how you organize the context you feed it. The pro move isn't finding the right word, it's uploading the right infrastructure. I honestly don't understand why so many people online are only talking about the structure of a prompt, but ignoring how to actually take advantage of the technology available. If you want to move past the basics, you have to understand that you're working in two completely different worlds. The first one is the ChatGPT UI or Gemini or any other AI tool you are using. This one is stateful. It has a memory, it knows your custom instructions, it tracks down the conversation history, and it holds into the context in the background. In this world, you should be a little lazy with your prompts, because the AI is doing the heavy lifting of remembering who you are. But then there's the API. This is what we use in N8N or custom business apps. The API is stateless. In this world, AI has total amnesia. Every time you send a message, it's like the AI is meeting you for the first time. It doesn't know your goals, your brand, or your internal playbooks unless you provide them every single time. So short prompts work in ChatGPT because context already exists. You just need to learn how to work with that memory. I'll show you in a few seconds how. But long structured prompts are necessary in the API because nothing is remembered. So once you separate these two worlds in your head, prompting suddenly becomes a lot more predictable and structured. The biggest difference between someone just messing around with AI and someone building high-value systems is framework. I don't care how smart the model gets. If you don't define these 4 pillars, you're leaving the quality of your work up to chance. Let's talk about T.P.O.C. This is the framework I use whenever I want consistent results from the AI. So T stands for task, the specific action you want the AI to perform. For example, rewrite this email. P stands for persona, the role the AI should operate from. So something like you are a conversion-focused copywriter. O stands for objective, the outcome you actually care about. For example, increase click-through rates. C stands for constraints. These are the guardrails. For example, no jargon, maximum 150 words and stuff like that. Now, this framework works in 2 completely different ways, depending on the environment. In a stateless environment, like the API, you usually send the full T.P.O.C in a single prompt, because there is no memory and the prompt has to carry everything. You explicitly define the task, the persona, the objective and the constraints. In a stateful environment, like ChatGPT, you don't need to repeat all this. You can set parts of T.P.O.C once. For example, for the persona and for the constraints, you can update ChatGPT's memory. then your actual prompts can become very short. You might only send the task, because the rest already exists in the context. So T.P.O.C isn't something you use every time. It's just a way to check what the AI knows and what it doesn't. So if something is missing, you either put it in the prompt or you put it in the memory. That's it. If you want to reach the point where you can get complex work done with just a 5-word prompt, you need to stop treating ChatGPT's memory like a junk drawer. ChatGPT is a stateful system. That means it's constantly working with context. Not just what you type now, but what came before. Right here in settings, you have personalization. You can add custom instructions to ChatGPT, like base style and tone, characteristics. Then you can define if you want it to be warm, enthusiastic. Then you can set up custom instructions. You can add information about you. Now, you also have something called memory. This is where ChatGPT is storing information about you, something you've told it to remember maybe. And in here you'll be able to see what it knows about you. And based on this stuff, it will answer your questions. So let's go ahead and try to update this memory. So close this and open a chat window. Memory works best when you store things that should be true almost all the time. Things like my role, my writing style, my brain voice, my formatting preferences, how I want to receive my answers. So for example, I'll tell it I have an AI agency and a YouTube channel. Remember this and send. And as you can see, it updated saved memory. And now in each new chat it will know that you have an AI agency and a YouTube channel. Then if you want to change how ChatGPT answers to you, you can tell it something like, remember that I want my answers to be short but packed with value, and again it will update its memory. Now we can also update the tone and stuff like that. We just need to configure it. So for business related chats, use a clear, concise tone. Remember that. So this is a good use of memory. So with these few messages, we just updated parts of the AI's persona, basically how we want it to be. Now we can also add constraints. Remember, when we script videos, I don't want you to use AI default language. You know, stuff like no fluff, words like punchy. So let's tell it that. Saved. No generic AI language in video scripts. Natural, human, grounded only. Great. So now we don't have to tell it this every single time. It will reference its memory. So now when we tell it script the next video, it will go and search how we want it to be. We don't have to write it in the prompt ourselves. Now there are some things that shouldn't be added to the memory. So most of us are using ChatGPT like a personal assistant. So we are using it for business stuff, for work, but then we are also using it for things like recipes. I don't know, I want to cook chicken. Then what I would do is I would open a new chat and then I would turn on temporary chat. If you speak to it here with tasks that don't need to reference the memory, then it won't remember them and it won't use them to train itself. And I keep everything clean just by using this feature right here. Now there are some other stuff that don't belong in memory. For example, I wouldn't give it my tasks because these change a lot, so we'd have to update it daily. But if I had some long-term goals, then for sure I would add them here. So the practical setup looks like this. The persona and constraints live in memory, tasks live in the prompt, and objectives can go both ways. So you can start a session and tell it your objectives and then you start asking questions. You can add them in the memory if they are long term, or you can just mention them in the prompt. That's it. Think of ChatGPT's memory like a configuration file. Only put things there that should apply by default. Everything else belongs in the prompt or the current chat. So if you treat memory this way, ChatGPT stops feeling random. It starts being predictable. Now when you move from the ChatGPT app into the API, the rules of the game change completely. In this world, being short and sweet isn't an efficient play, because the API is stateless. It has total amnesia. It doesn't know your brand or your preferences. To get a professional result, your prompt has to carry the entire weight of the business logic. Let's look at the difference. If you send this to the API, you're going to get a generic 5-paragraph essay with 8 hashtags and 0 personality. Why? Because you gave it a task, but no infrastructure. Now let's look at the prompt that actually works for the same task. See the difference? In my workflows, I use prompts like this because I need the results to be a 10 out of 10 every single time without me being there to fix it. I'm explicitly defining the persona and the constraints because the API hasn't met me yet. So if you want to build systems that actually move the needle, you have to embrace the long form prompt. So if you're using the API, stop trying to save time by writing smaller prompts, because in the end you're just gonna end up wasting more time than you'd do if you've configured it right from the start. Now ChatGPT can already remember things and it can hold context, and for most everyday tasks that's enough. But that changes a bit when you move into complex work. Let's take image generation as an example. I'm not a designer, I don't know camera lenses, lighting terms or composition rules, and I don't try to learn all that stuff. So instead of guessing what a good image prompt looks like, I let ChatGPT design the prompt for me. This is what I mean by a meta prompt. So we can go ahead and tell it something like this. I want to generate an image for my next thumbnail starting from an attached subject, but I'm not a professional designer. Ask me questions you need in order to create a high quality image prompt. Once you have the answers, write the final prompt from me. So let's send it. And let's start answering. So 1. Who is the main subject? Me. Next one. What's the emotional attitude on their face? Confident. Side profile. 2. What is the one idea the thumbnail must communicate? So basically it's this video right here, it's a prompting guide. I don't know if I'll use the image from ChatGPT. I might have to design it myself, like I do for the others. I'm gonna copy this video's title, I don't know if this will be the actual title. Then it is asking me if there's text on the thumbnail. Yes, but I want it to define it. Then 3. Clean, I want it to be clean plus cinematic. Then I want it to be realistic. 4. Background, studio, gradient, dark. Any colors to avoid or prefer? I'm gonna choose orange for the text. You have the color code in your memory because I already defined this a couple of weeks ago. Then for lighting and contrast, height, contrast and dramatic or soft and even. Okay, let's say that I don't know what I want here. Define this for me. Then 6. This is for YouTube thumbnail, correct? Yes. No. 7. Don'ts. Anything you absolutely don't want. Okay, this one feels like something I don't want, so let's just copy it and put it here. Now let's see if it generates the prompt. Okay, let's copy it. Let's tell it generate and then paste the prompt. Now we'll also need to attach a subject, so I'll take just a screenshot of me and let's send it. This basically works because the model has seen millions of high quality prompts. So instead of me guessing what I should tell it, I'm delegating the prompt design to itself. Okay, this looks awesome. I'm actually gonna use this image right here. So let me just download it. Awesome, awesome. Now, the meta prompt is something you use when the task is complex and you are not an expert. With this, you don't need to know the right words, you just need to know what you want and let the model figure out how to ask for it. This is how you move from using AI to directing it. Now, in a world where everyone has a genius in their pocket, knowing the right words isn't a competitive advantage anymore. The real gap is no longer between those knowing how to prompt and those who don't. Look, as the models get smarter, the barrier for entry is thinner. If the AI can eventually guess what you want, then prompt engineering as a skill is going to lose its value. But here's what won't lose value: context, memory, and systems. So the people who are going to win in this new era aren't the ones with a folder with 500 ready to paste prompts. They're the ones who know how to wire these models into their business. So prompting is just the interface. Context is the actual leverage. So my challenge to you is this: stop trying to find the perfect prompt, start building the perfect environment. Now, if your goal is to actually make money with AI, this is where prompting stops being the main thing. What matters next is understanding how all of this fits into real systems, from simple automations to more advanced workflows. I put together a full video called the AI Automation Roadmap. I show how someone goes from using AI casually to building things that create real leverage and real outcomes. If this way of thinking makes sense to you, this is the video you should watch next. I'll see you there.